Hi, I'm Clark Kent. This is my first day at the Daily Planet.
Superman? You work at the Daily Planet now? Awesome!
No, I'm Clark Kent, not Superman.
You just saved the world from Zod. You're like the most famous person ever. A pair of glasses aren't gonna hide that.
I'm Clark Kent.
Superman. What's that S stand for? Stupid? I knew these glasses were a terrible idea.
Zack Snyder and David Goyer's Man of Steel has just dropped into theaters and has apparently set the record for the biggest June opening. I'm Jason Inman. Before I tell you what I think about this movie, I want to give you a little bit of background on myself. I am born and bred in Kansas. Born and bred on a Kansas farm. So you can see why I can identify with the Man of Steel. Now, I have loved the previous Superman movies. I love the first Superman movie, Christopher Reeve. I love number 2. Don't like 3 and 4 so much. I was a big fan of Smallville, and I enjoyed parts of Superman Returns. So that should give you a little bit of litmus test for what I thought about Man of Steel. But before I get into the exact, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all that rigmarole, I just want to say that this movie, Man of Steel, is probably the perfect movie for a 13-year-old. It is everything he would dream and think about. It's action, and it's all about the outsider and finding your place into the world. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the good, the bad, and the ugly. One of the best things about Man of Steel is Henry Cavill as Superman himself. This guy with his jaw and his super pecs and his super stare and his non-British accent was probably the perfect casting choice for Superman. I even heard stories that he was apparently almost up for the role in Superman Returns, and I'm actually glad that Bryan Singer didn't cast him and he got into this movie. He's silent through a lot of the movie, but you can see in a lot of scenes his eyes that he portrays the perfect stoic Superman. And there are so many shots at the end where he has the suit on and he's doing the poses and he's fighting the things that I look and I see the classic Golden Age Superman. So at casting Superman, perfection. Usually in most Superman adaptations, Jor-El, Superman's biological father, is just a hologram that doesn't really interact, doesn't really do anything. In this movie, that is not the case. This is action-packed Jor-El. He gets in a fist fight with Zod and he wins, and he walks around a ship later in the movie, opening doors and closing doors and having interactive holographic conversations with the Man of Steel himself. It works very well for this movie. It's actually good because you don't want to give an Oscar winner like Russell Crowe just to be a floating head throughout the most of the movie. It makes Jor-El more of a presence in this movie, which he wasn't in previous Superman stories, which is a good thing.
You have abandoned the principles that bound us together. You've taken up the sword against your own people.
Another good thing in this movie is the action. The action is mind-blowing and almost too much at some points. Buildings topple, people run, gods punch each other. This invasion scene of Metropolis, the skyscrapers are tumbling, and anybody that has been through 9/11, I think would have problems maybe watching this movie because you are scenes where people get crumbled and people die. Basically, a lot of people die in this movie. I can't put a more point. People die in this movie, like up to the thousands probably die in this movie. It shows you what happens when two gods attack each other, and it makes the Avengers alien invasion scene look cartoonish in retrospect. It was silly because in that movie, no buildings crumbled, nobody really got hurt, and in this movie, Superman punched Zod through a building, a skyscraper toppled, and every one of that building is toast. There are superhero fights in this movie that have never been seen before, have never been done as well before, and they are jaw-dropping. Your jaw hits the floor and never comes up again. And it's amazing. Also, for the app-eyed viewer, there are many Easter eggs in this movie. There is a Booster Gold Easter egg for Blaster Comics. There is plenty of LexCorp sightings. You get to see the LexCorp building. You get to see a LexCorp truck. And finally, Superman and Zod destroy Batman's satellite. Yes, there is a scene where Superman and Zod fly up into the outer space, not just the space, and they crash through a Wayne Enterprises satellite. I bet you Batman is pretty pissed about that. So that's an awesome nod and shout out. Also, many lines from this movie are cribbed from Superman comic books. There is a line that Jor-El says that comes directly from All-Star Superman. There is a scene that directly comes from Jeff Johns' Superman Secret Origins.
You're the answer, son. You're the answer to are we alone in the universe?
Can I just keep pretending I'm your son?
You are my son.
This movie is different enough and tries new things about Superman, but yet it adheres to many old Superman storylines. So as a Superman fan like myself, this works. Man of Steel has the main flaw that most Zack Snyder films have. It never slows down. It never stops. It never gives you a chance to get a word in or breathe. And sometimes it is too much because it just keeps going like a freight train, which makes sense that this is the Man of Steel, more powerful than a locomotive. But sometimes I want to stop because it's doing too much. Like this video right now, I want to stop. Oh, yeah. Sometimes movies benefit from having scenes where you can go, this movie never gives you that scene. And in retrospect, probably the biggest problem with it is in the Lois and Clark relationship. There are 3 moments with Lois and Clark in this movie where he saves her, and we never really get a chance to see their chemistry. We only get to see it in stares, and from their stares and their looks and their winks, that maybe they can develop a relationship. You get a little bit of a hint in this in the very end when Clark decides that his profession should be to become a reporter like Lois. He is inspired by Lois. So that could show a little bit of love, but in most cases a little bit of a stretch that they hook up, that they get together. It's a little bit, we could have used a couple of lovey-dovey scenes there. The secret identity is probably one of the worst things about Superman all around. It was a fun, quaint, and funny idea back in the Golden Age, and now you have to suspend your disbelief so much to make it work. And the thing about it is that Man of Steel is such a realistic movie. We see buildings topple. We see he didn't hide any of the product placement. He was just like, you know what? There's a 7-Eleven here. I'm not going to change the logo. It's going to be a 7-Eleven. I don't care. Which I admire that because it makes it feel like a real world setting. Because, you know, towns do have IHOPs and towns do have 7-Elevens and towns do have Sears. So the other aspect of this is that the secret identity. We are introduced to the Clark Kent secret identity in the final scene of the movie. Spoilers, yeah, I already said spoilers at the beginning. But we are introduced to the Clark Kent secret identity at the very end. And Lois, of course, recognizes him. But how does everybody else in the world and the Daily Planet not recognize who Superman is by glasses? Now, I don't know if they're saving this for the sequel, say like Lois is going to teach Superman how to create a secret identity. I don't know. But at where it stands, it's very unbelievable that the world and the reporters of the Daily Planet would not recognize the man who is the most famous person in the world. I almost thought they were going to I originally, when I first saw this movie, thought they were going to get rid of the secret identity completely. I didn't think there was going to be a glassed Clark Kent. I thought maybe he was just going to be Superman all the time, which would be another significant change, but they went with it, and I'm excited to see with it. I do love this final scene. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty, probably the most argued point about this movie, the death of General Zod. General Zod is in a chokehold by Superman, and he's heat visioning some random innocent people who just don't know how to run 3 inches to the left. Hello, stupid people. And Superman snaps Zod's neck to stop General Zod from killing those people. Now, a lot of hardcore Superman fans have had argues about this. Mark Wade had a very long list talking about this. Alan Kitzler, another person from Twitter, does not like this. When I first saw this movie, did not like it. I was very against it. Superman does not kill. That's his one rule, and he kills. Talking to a lot of my friends, they seem to like it, and they're not Superman fans, but so they like the differences in it. Going back to the comic books, I looked it up, and there is a scene in the comic books where Superman kills General Zod. It's in a John Byrne run, and he kills General Zod with kryptonite. So there is a precedent for it. Also, in another story, an Alan Moore story called Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, Superman kills at the very end of that storyline too. So it is not unheard of that Superman kills, but he only kills in very situation where there's no other choice. The problem I have with it still, I've learned to accept it. But it's almost at the point that where we have this giant fist fight where Superman and Zod just punch the crap out of each other for another 15 minutes after all the Kryptonians have been sucked into the black hole. I almost feel that Zod should have been sucked up into the black hole too. That Superman should have figured out some way and punched Zod, had this fist fight while the people were being sucked into the black hole, and at the very end, Superman punched Zod into the black hole too. The extra 15 minutes of Zod and Superman fighting doesn't quite work. Finally, Man of Steel is not a perfect movie. It has a lot of problems, but it has a lot of greatness in it. It does so many things right that I just don't care about the things that it does wrong. It is a movie where people that instead of emoting, they scream. Superman screams a lot in this film. Also, he coughs. I don't know if you ever expected to see that, but there's a Superman coughing scene. They're super coughing. Yeah! The one thing that this film does right is that it has made Superman action-packed, ass-kicking, and epic again. And you know what? As a hardcore Superman fan, I feel that sometimes the Superman films and the Superman media have been stuck since that Richard Donner film of 25 years ago, that we must adhere to this perfect vision of Crystal Superman with Marlon Brando. And so it's nice to every once in a while when a creative person comes along and kicks Superman in the pants, because sometimes, Superman just needs to be kicked in the ass. That way we can get, a different take, a new vision, and that's why I like Man of Steel. Man of Steel for me is a B+, and it's definitely so far been the best movie of the summer. If you like Superman at all, you like any kind of DC comic book superhero, or even superheroes in general, I would say go see Man of Steel. Them's my 2 cents on what I thought about Man of Steel. I'm Jason Inman. Be seeing you.